Okay, hello, good afternoon. We're back for Fika Season 2. My name is Joyce. I am your Fika host, and we're streaming live from Coffee with Joyce. So I'm sorry we were a little late by 2 minutes. Our guest is already here with us at the broadcast studio. So again, we just launched our Fika Season 2. This is our virtual coffee break learning session. And if you remember last week, I talked about breakthrough conversations. And I shared a quote from Sheryl Sandberg, Option B author and CEO of Facebook. And she said that, we're going through, when life pulls us down, then what we can do is to kick the bottom so that we can break through the surface and bounce back better. So that was the intention of that first live coaching session. And this afternoon, we're very fortunate to have with us somebody who is a counselor, a coach who has worked with adults and older adolescents in terms of dealing with grief and life changes. She has 20 years of professional experience as a counselor, coach, and a social worker. She has been to the UK, to the Philippines, Japan, and now she's joining us all the way from Colombo, Sri Lanka. She holds a master's degree in social work from Oxford University. She's a certified solution-focused therapist and coach by the Canadian Council for Professional Certification and the International Alliance of Solution-Focused Training Institutes. She is a credentialed coach, a PCC, by the International Coach Federation. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have with us Sukanya Wignaraja, all the way from Colombo, Sri Lanka. Good afternoon, Sukanya.
Hello. Good afternoon, Joyce. I'm very well, thank you. It's wonderful to be here with all of you. Thank you for inviting me.
And thank you for making time for our virtual coffee break. How are things over there in Colombo?
Well, we're a bit like you, I think, in Manila. We are under complete lockdown in Colombo, not on the whole country, but here. This is our 7th week. And we are not sure exactly how long the lockdown will continue. Yeah, so I have not stepped out of the house since 20th of March was the last time that I actually went outside my gates. But it's how it is, and you learn to adapt. All my work has shifted online. I mean, I usually see my counseling and coaching clients at home, which of course I can't do now. So I have begun doing sessions online. So which is, a different way of working. And I think if somebody had told me 6 months ago that I would be seeing everybody online, including couples, I would have said, no, that will never happen because it's not possible. But it clearly is, because this is what I'm doing. It's what I find myself doing. And, people are coming. I've picked up new clients in this lockdown period. Because I think people, perhaps now more than ever before, people are looking for support. They need an outlet because this situation is just so different from anything any of us could ever have imagined.
Oh, that's
And
right.
it's challenging. It's challenging at so many different levels. So yes, I mean, I'm glad that I'm at least able to continue my work online. So I feel I'm doing something to help.
Well, a lot of us did find ourselves rethinking the way we do things. And I'm curious because, Sukanya, you've been to different countries and you've worked with people from various walks of life. And again, I'm curious, how do people cope in general? Are they similar or do they differ?
I think, I mean, from what I have seen over the years, I think most people cope in similar ways. It doesn't matter where they are, who they are, but it's, when life throws different things your way, most people find ways of handling it. And it's more that, I mean, actually how they are doing it may differ, but the fact that people are able to cope in situations that are challenging, with sudden shocks, with bereavement, with all, and when I talk about bereavement and loss, I mean that at many different levels, not only bereavement in the sense of losing somebody, of a death, but loss of a relationship, loss of a job, moving countries. There are so many different aspects to that. And I think for me, it's about the fact that the majority of people are able to cope. And sometimes, when I think back over the years, I can remember some really quite extraordinary stories of ordinary people faced with extraordinary circumstances and finding within themselves these innate abilities to manage. And which is why I have, for some time been very curious about this whole idea of how does that happen? Because I have seen that people can. So it's how do they do it? What makes people resilient? What gives them that ability to bounce back? Mm-hmm. And those are the questions that I often, that I think about.
You could say this is inherent. And how do we actually find out, okay, what is inherent in me that will help me cope with something totally unexpected in modern times?
Yes, I think, that sometimes it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation, because when it comes to us understanding or identifying what these inherent coping skills, resources are, something has to happen in order for us to harness those traits, characteristics that we might have. And this is the whole issue about resilience, where even people who have been, there is a lot of solid research that's been happening over decades into what makes people resilient. And one of the challenges for researchers, and often these are developmental psychologists, is that you don't always know, you cannot always figure out how resilient a person is. So how resilient a person is determined largely by how their lives unfold.
So okay. Yeah. If we don't know how, we're not maybe fully conscious that we are resilient after all. We'll only find out once that event happens.
Yeah.
Are you saying that we have to build our capability to be resilient?
Yes, exactly. And I think that is possible because, again, if you go back and look at the research, what the research has basically found is that, there are things that happen as we grow up in childhood. So some people are more able to cope than others. Most people have the ability to cope with adverse events, whatever that might be. And why is that? It's because they will have had certain factors present as they are growing up. And I think, psychologists talk about protective factors. So these are things that are present in people, and protective factors are developed during childhood, but equally it is not something that is confined to our childhood. These are things that we can sort of work on and develop consciously. So it's things like, how do you view something that is a challenging situation? Say something, if I take an example, there is something goes wrong in the workplace. So you're involved in a project, you do something, it doesn't work. Now, somebody who is inherently resilient, their approach will be, okay, that didn't work, but that doesn't mean that I am unable to do anything well at all. So, resilient people will view challenges as learning opportunities. That's one thing. And this is also something that we can consciously try to develop in ourselves. That if something goes pear-shaped, it doesn't necessarily mean that nothing you ever do after that is going to work. So it's also about not seeing an adverse event as being something that cuts across every facet of your life. It is, yes, that particular thing has not worked, but doesn't mean that nothing else will.
Okay, what I'm picking up now is that resilience is about managing your perception. That's
absolutely.
The factor is very mental.
Yeah, it is absolutely. It's how you view. So there are many characteristics of resilient people. So resilience is very simply bouncing back from an adverse event, being able to function well after something that has been challenging, something that has been difficult, something that has been a shock, picking yourself up and functioning.
Okay.
So how do you do that? People have certain characteristics.
Okay.
One of which is to do with how you view that event and how you perceive that event's effect on your life. Does it overwhelm you completely, or are you able to say, well, yes, okay, but, that was really hard, but I can move on, I can do something else. And I think, the word resilience is used a lot.
Yes.
And sometimes I think it has sort of gained this status of something that is, up there, that, is hard to get, and only certain people are able to be resilient, and there is something, very special and mystical about it. No, it's pretty much anybody. And I'm sure the people, those of you who are listening today, if you think back over your daily lives, and particularly if you think back over this last few weeks, this situation which has challenged each and every one of us without exception, you will find that, there are things that you have been doing that have been working. When I see my clients recently, I was with a client in, again, online session, and, everybody's struggling with different things. So with this person, we started going over, all the things that she had been doing, and suddenly it occurred to her that actually she was coping really well. Because when I got her to think about what were all the things that she was doing that were working, she was able to list many things, and she had actually not thought of that. She was doing them. But the question is, how do you? You also have a choice, Everybody has a choice not to get out of bed, not to get dressed, etc. It's very easy to fall into those patterns. But the vast majority of people are not. I've given a couple of talks online in the last 2 weeks, and I have been amazed at the kinds of things that people have been doing.
And these things need not be grand things. Because maybe the reason why you feel overwhelmed is because we want to go back to the normal.
Exactly. Yes.
The normal should be. So, these little things, what are the examples that you can cite, maybe from your background?
The small things are all sorts of, I know that what helps people to maintain an equilibrium is, I know routine is very important. I can tell you it works for me, and from what I can gather from my interactions with my clients and with other audiences, routine is really important. Whatever that might be for you.
So maybe we have to set up a different routine, or
a different routine, whatever, because it is going to be different. That, we all know. You have to take that as a given. So how do you make, everybody here has been used to a regular daily routine of going to a workplace, of interacting with people, of doing, so now we are suddenly thrown into a completely different environment where you are expected to carry on doing many of those things. But often in fact all the time, in an environment that is very different.
One of our members, yesterday I ran a quick survey. If there is anything that they are having difficulties with, one of our members said that she's getting bored at home, and I think she's suffering from cabin fever. So how can we help her establish her own routine, or is there any other things that she can do to help her overcome this?
Yes, cabin, it's so understandable. Cabin fever is something that it's a completely normal response to the current situation. We all experience that. There are days when things go really well. There are other days when, you feel really cooped up. And it's interesting, I read an article exactly on boredom a couple of days ago, which I will forward to you, Joyce. You can share the link. And I had no idea that there are people who have been working on, who have been doing research on boredom. What makes people, how is it different? What makes people feel bored? How can you come out of it? And I think, again, it is about thinking through what can you do differently. I think, Joyce, were you there in one of the coaches' circles where somebody shared a set of questions.
I might have, that's where
Okay,
we
that's where we met.
first.
So yes, so
Oh.
do you remember? So I found those. So it was another coach who shared a set of questions that she kicks off her day with. So her day is with her husband and her children around the breakfast table. And the set of questions that they kind of go around and ask each other to sort of set the tone of the day is, what am I grateful for today was one. Who am I going to check in or connect with today was number two. The third one, what expectations am I of myself am I letting go of today?
Wow, I like those questions.
Yeah. How am I moving my body today was question number 4. And question number 5 was, what beauty am I creating, cultivating, or inviting into my life today?
Can you imagine that? Asking ourselves how we may cultivate
Yes.
in our homes. And I just received a message from one of our viewers. She's in Seoul, South Korea, and she said that you gave a very good reminder because there are things that she has been working on. Mornings might not be particularly easy, but later in the day, things start feeling better. So usually what she does different are simple things like a quick smile, short video chat with a friend. Hopefully this Fika session helps, right? Each of these small things are milestones during these challenging times.
Absolutely, yeah. That's such a great word, milestones. Absolutely. And it is really the little things. And I think in a way this situation has made us focus on all the little things around us that make a difference.
Which we
which
we used to ignore.
Yeah, things that we ignored, It's I think there are a lot of people who have found a lot of creative things that they do. People have taken up things that, hobbies that they had forgotten about, that they never had time for. And I also think that these little, fikas like this, little video chats with friends, with family, suddenly we begin to really value those so much. Because that is really important, is to keep in touch with people. So there was one of the psychologists whose work I follow a lot, who has done a lot of really seminal research on resilience, is a man called George Bonanno. He's American. Bonanno, Bonano, George A. Bonanno.
Okay.
And he's done work on resilience in grief and loss. Okay. And he was one of the first people to bring in the idea of resilience in the grieving process. Okay. Because the traditional models of grieving, the Kubler-Ross, it doesn't have that idea. There are the 5 stages of grief, but George Bonanno takes a different approach. So he was interviewed a little over a month ago. Okay. As this pandemic was spreading and growing, about how he thought, how does resilience work in the time of a pandemic? And what he said was that it's about trying to keep your stress levels under control. It's about trying to manage your, anxiety about what is happening. And that's absolutely right. And how do you do it? You do it by harnessing the things that are already easily available to you, the things that you are already doing. And he listed a few things.
Okay.
When I'm going to say them, they sound very obvious when you list them, but sometimes the most obvious things are the ones that we do not see. So he talks about staying optimistic, relying on the support of others. So this interconnectedness, it's really important. Bonding with people who are close to us. This is an interesting point, keeping informed, but not overindulging in media consumption.
Take note, guys.
Yeah, that
is media, especially nowadays.
Yeah,
Rising.
That's right.
Okay.
And then finding ways of distracting oneself. And I mean, the thing that he really emphasizes is to find ways of minimizing isolation, whether that is by video chats or whatever, or other fora, joining webinars, doing whatever. So this remaining connected is one of the most crucial ways of staying resilient.
Sukanya, we're about to wrap up. Before we end, I just have a very important question that asked in our community. Earlier, you were talking about support and loved ones. How do we help family members or friends who are going through a hard time? And this pandemic gave rise to mental health issues, and we're going to
absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I think by being present for others, by being connected, if it's family members that you are with under the same roof, sort of, making it clear that you're there, that you're ready to listen, by acknowledging that it's hard. It's very easy to brush off and say, oh, look, just get on with it. But I think just the pure and simple acknowledgement that another person is finding this difficult goes a long way. And then helping people to access whatever kind of help is available. Because now, most of us, certainly in my profession, we have shifted to working online.
That's right.
And I know that there are very good resources available in Manila. I know, because I used to work for one of these organizations, yes, In Touch. And I think it's really, absolutely. So organizations like In Touch, from their phone counseling to their face-to-face, which now I know all my former colleagues are doing online work, the help is there. It's there, and it's really important to access it, because it's, mental health is one of our physical and our mental health are so closely intertwined. You need to take equal care of both. You cannot have one without the other.
And it's good that, we have now considered going online, doing all the virtual connectedness, like this Fika. And I'm sure you do your own coaching and counseling sessions online. So some of our viewers might want to get in touch with you. How do they reach you, Sukanya?
You can get all my contact details through my website. Joyce, I think you have that.
Yes.
Please share it. Please share it with people.
It's Sukanya.com, right?
Yes, www.sukanyaw.com. That's right. It's, is it there?
Yes. Or, our friends may Google your name and
Yes.
for sure they will find
Yeah.
you. But
Yeah.
yes, we will share your details later.
Yeah.
Also briefly show our next Fika sessions. We'll have another one next week on Wednesday at 3 p.m. So you did say that we establish routines and we try to connect with each other. It need not be grand. So these Fika sessions, virtual coffee break sessions, are just some of the little things that we do in our community and which we hope to share with our friends. Okay, so I'm just flashing it. You can look at it on the site and on the community. We've also put together the coping during COVID learning resource unit in the Bell Cafe community. And we've just created our second learning resource unit, and it's now called Bounce Back Better. So we have Sukanya as one of our foundational speakers. Hopefully, our friends were able to pick up small, simple, but really powerful things to start doing in their own lives during this COVID pandemic. So, thank you very much for making time for this virtual coffee break. Anything else that you'd like to share? Oh, I'll just read one more. Such powerful questions that you shared, and they are good reminders. They're from Yanni Alon, who's also a coach, is a founder.
Okay. Great.
So again, thank you very much, Sukanya.
Thank you.
Yes, do get in touch with Sukanya if you have, concerns or you may reach me. We'll be posting more information and updates on our page and community. So again, thank you very much for joining us for a virtual coffee break. I had my first Dunkin' Donuts again during the quarantine season. So be safe and take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks a lot.